Welcome back. As you know, yesterday, some of you may know, there was a fire here in the community. We're going to get to that in just a moment, but we're happy to have on, Steve Concialdi. He's a captain with OC Fire Authority and also is a public information officer. We have you on every month, and you brought along a battalion chief. And this is I think this is your first time here, Mike Schrader.
Correct.
And we were talking just briefly, your area, I don't know if you call it a district or battalion, obviously, is up in the Tustin area.
Correct.
And it's nice to have you here because you are also a former fire investigator, right? So you would go out after something that would happen and try and figure out what was the cause, what led to it, and that sort of thing.
Correct. The intent was not that we're just curious, but we want to take that information that we gather and then kind of reverse engineer our education programs. If a certain thing is causing a fire and it's rising in incidence, we want to gather that information so that we can go back and kind of really target our education and prevention efforts to prevent it from happening in the future. That's our goal. So it's
and obviously you want to see something suspicious as well.
Absolutely. About 1 in 10 fires, about 10% of our fires, or a little bit less, are intentional, as we call it.
Yeah, very interesting profession. And what is the specific training that you do on that? Beyond the normal becoming a firefighter, we went up to their training facility and saw what it takes, but this is obviously a specialty. How do you train for that?
It is. There's a screening process for all, at the time, fire captains are allowed to put in for the position. And then you're screened through an internal interview process, and you have to just do some self-study. But after you're selected to the program, then you go through all the law enforcement training that's applicable. At the end of that training, you will have the basic competencies to do an origin and cause investigation, as well as interview and interrogate those that intentionally started fires or suspected of such. And then also, in our jurisdiction, we actually have police powers and are considered law enforcement and carry such credentials. So that if we do come across those intentional fires, we are able to apprehend suspects. And we're in coordination with local law enforcement, our partners through the different cities and the county that we work with.
And I would think a lot of science behind that, because you have to determine what, especially if it is a suspected arson, the combustible material that was used, the pattern of it, how it works, and it just seems very fascinating. And
we love it. It's quite a blessing to be able to go to work every day and enjoy what you do, and then to be able to produce a product where you can figure out what caused the fire, help to prevent future fires, and then if somebody did intentionally cause it, you can bring them to justice. But the science is definitely there. That's why all the training has to happen, so that we know forensically that if this case went to court, it would stand up to that high standard. It's got to be scientifically done.
Interesting. And speaking of how the cause of fires and the prevention, Steve is on here every month, and your main topic, the umbrella topic, is always prevention.
Correct.
Whether we're talking about kitchen fires, home fires, drowning, prevention with the proper fire detectors and things like this, smoke detectors. That's the name of the game.
Exactly.
That's, kitchen fires are, what happens more than anything else, and, you see this all the time, people just leave what's on the stove or whatever it might be out on their barbecue or something like that. And if they were just mindful of that, and if doorbell rings, whatever, turn off the pan. Obviously, if it's in the oven, that's something different. But you turn off the pan, I can tell you as somebody who's cooked all my life, it's not going to destroy what you're cooking to turn off the fire for a few minutes.
Right. Yep. Unintended fires cause significant fires in Orange County. On average, one kitchen fire occurs every 3 days here in Orange County.
Wow.
And most of them are unintended. Cooking, basically, like you said, they answer the phone, they answer the door, they attend to grandkids, they attend to their kids, walk away. And fortunately, yesterday, this smoke alarm saved the day. And we believe it saved lives. The resident was not home at the time, fortunately, and it was a kitchen fire again. Now this time it was, and the fire investigators believe it was a malfunction of an electrical appliance. And we've talked about this before. That's why we always recommend with a toaster, a blender, a coffee maker, anything that's easily unplugged to unplug it. So that way there's no problem. If something happens, Nothing will happen if it's unplugged. And then again, if you're right there with your food, what you're cooking, if something happens, you could tend to it. Like if there's a grease fire, we don't ever want to grab it and run with it. We want to take a lid, carefully put it over, and put it down, and that'll stop the fire.
We have some footage that we're going to show here, and I don't know, is there sound with this, Steve? Okay, so it's about 3 minutes, I believe. We're going to go to this with, I think it's with Kenny Dawsey.
Okay.
And then we'll come right back.
Sure.
But we want to show this before we forget, and we'll roll into that, and we'll come back with these gentlemen. Yeah, this is what Mark took in.
Chief, what's going on here?
Today at approximately 9:46 a.m., units from the Orange County Fire Authority responded to a reported structure fire. We arrived approximately 5 minutes later, and when we got here, we found fire in one of the units that had already spread to one of the other units. Our units made an aggressive interior attack to extinguish the fire and keep it contained to the 2 units that it had already been started in. But during firefighting operations, we did have one firefighter that sustained minor injuries to his arm. They're of the burn nature, and he's currently being treated at the local hospital. We also had during the rescue operations, we did rescue 4 cats. Unfortunately, one was deceased, as well as 1 dog that was also deceased. So we were able to save 5 of them. However, we did lose the 1 dog and the 1 cat. Right now, units are still conducting an investigation to find out what the cause of the fire was, and hopefully we'll know what that is sometime in the next 24 hours.
So what happened with us was when we got here, fire was in one of the farther suites down there. It went up and ran inside the attic, some of the footage that you got. We got on scene and we started a hole right there in the middle where you see the hole that goes along. And basically what we do is we cut a hole all the way across, so any fire coming this direction goes the path of least resistance, which is up. So it comes to our hole and the fire goes up. So as the fire is racing down towards this end of the building, ready to burn this entire side of the building down, we got in the middle of it, got ahead of it, and cut a hole. As we cut a hole all the way across, there was smoke and fire coming out of the holes as we cut them. Then we backed up to here and cut 2 holes just to make sure the fire hadn't gotten ahead of us, which it hadn't. And then that's when we basically stopped our operation. The guys at the same time, simultaneously, they go inside with their hoses, go find the seat of the fire and put the fire out. Pull some ceiling and then put the fire out. I'm not sure they're investigating it right now, or the second suite over. If you look at the rafters, there's more damage in the far suite, so I think that's probably where it came from. Got up in the common attic area and started coming this direction. But it's under investigation, so the investigators are down there right now, and they're going to come up with a cause and origin here probably in the next hour or so.
Just looked at that as like, does that mean patient? Does that mean? I didn't know what it meant. Okay, all right, we're back, and Mike, you pointed out some very significant clues to this fire just by looking at the video here, right?
Correct. Part of the training that we go through to become fire investigators is that you look at the approximately 13 different types of fire patterns that show a fire movement or fire intensity pattern. It shows that it's moving in a direction, top to bottom, left to right, and then also the intensity. Is it just flashing or is it deeply burning? I mean, there's a lot of different factors that go into it. So when you walk into a scene, you can look at a house and pretty quickly determine, it's in this general area. And then you really start to have to dig and do almost like an archaeological dig and be very intentional and careful in how you de-layer the stuff that's left over.
One of the things that people tend to do in their kitchens a lot is a lot of clutter. People will often use their ovens for storage for things that are combustible. I guess if you had I keep my cast iron pan in there. I'm not really too worried about it. And I actually don't use my oven much because I'm out using my barbecue. But still, people will leave things in there, bizarre things. They might put their kitchen towels in there. They use it as another storage cabinet. Not a good idea.
No, absolutely not. And we do have a significant amount of fires where folks have limited storage in their kitchen, or they've got a lot of extra Tupperware, what have you. They'll put it right into the oven. And then they'll forget about it through the course of the year. Through the summer, they're not using their oven, it's hot. And then all of a sudden, the holidays hit, and they go, you know what, let's fire up the oven and do our holiday cookies or what have you. Next thing you know, they've got a fire. So using it as a storage thing is an absolute something that we talk people away from, because it's a recipe for disaster.
It is.
In addition to that, not just the inside of the oven, but the cooktop as well. Any kind of storage material on top of that is just asking for it. Whether you bump a knob and then leave, or you turn the wrong knob on and you've got cardboard over here. Another classic kitchen fire that we get. And then the other one is just normal cooking operations, but you haven't allowed enough distance, safe, clear space on your countertop on either side of the cooktop. Because if for some reason you do have a grease fire and you've got the paper towels right next to the cooktop, it becomes what we refer to as a receptive fuel bed. And all of a sudden that spark, flame, heat gets propagated there, and now it's off to the races into your cabinetry and so forth. So we try to encourage people to really take that caution. Steve had mentioned earlier about not walking away when you're cooking, and you had kind of highlighted that as well. Set an egg timer so that if you're, say you do have to go to the other part of the kitchen, just a little timer. We've had people take naps. We've had people answer the phone, answer the door.
Yeah.
It's just, we take it for granted, but it can easily be deadly, and can also, even in the event that it doesn't cause an injury or a fatality, you can see in the footage, it is a major disruption to your life. And it breaks our heart because we don't want to see that.
No.
So all 4 of these units are red tagged right now.
Yeah.
So one suffered extensive damage, the other 3 suffered smoke damage, as well as there's a common attic, so the fire got into the attic. So they had to be assisted by Red Cross, 3 of the residents, and it's a major disruption to their lives. And then it's going to take time to rebuild. So that's what we ask you with appliances. Don't use multi-plug adapters unless they have a circuit breaker on them. Keep everything clear of your cooking area, and check your smoke alarms, because their smoke alarm in this unit that it occurred in, the smoke alarm went off.
And I want to point out this because I have one of these that you guys gave me a while back. What's really nice about this model is it has a 10-year lithium battery in it, and you put it up, you don't have to check the battery all the time. What I do on mine is, because I'm kind of anal that way, is I actually write a date on it that says like end of life, and whatever it was for that day. I think it's 2020 for the one I have, but that's how I know. And I look at it and I actually dated it probably about a year before it's really done, because it says 10 years, 9 years is good enough for me, and I'll replace it. But they aren't expensive at all, $20, something like that. And in many cases, you folks will have certain programs throughout the year where people can get these if they're low income and things like that.
Yeah, Kidda has donated 5,000 smoke alarms every year, and they're doing it again this year. So if somebody needs a smoke alarm, they can't afford it, they just need to contact Orange County Fire Authority. Gladly provide them a smoke alarm.
Okay, we got a couple minutes left here. Let's talk about, it's end of summer, but that doesn't mean that kids are not out there swimming. And sadly, we've had a lot of drowning deaths in this in this county recently? I know there's obviously because of the high surf, you were dealing
Right.
with a lot of
We
that
just had
too.
one Saturday. So
Yeah.
since January 1st of this year, we've had 51 drowning calls here in Orange County. 19 of those have been fatal,
Gee.
which is very tragic. And even though those other ones weren't fatal, some of them suffered irreversible brain damage. So what we recommend is that you be cautious around the pool, around in the ocean, anytime you're in or near the water, and don't be ever in the water alone. Always have somebody with you. This past Saturday down at Salt Creek, it was a 60-year-old gentleman who was enjoying a beautiful, day at the beach with his family, went under a large wave, and it crashed down on him, and he still hasn't been recovered.
Wow.
And so it's very tragic. And so far, out of those 19 fatalities, 6 of them have been people over 50 years old. And I'm just looking at the stats
And that's
right
an
now.
interesting statistic because we usually think it's going to be, most of the time, but it's going to be a little kid. Yeah.
Right. And actually, 12 of our 19 fatalities have been people over 50.
Wow.
Yeah, 12. So
That's really
right.
a surprising statistic.
And what it is a lot of times there's people are in the water by themselves. I mean, we talked about last month,
Yeah,
the gentleman
yes.
in his 70s was in an apartment complex and just in the pool. If something happens, nobody's there to help
Yeah.
you. Where other times, if you pass out, get lightheaded and dizzy, have your blood sugar drop, or you have some cardiac event, if somebody's there, they could tend to you and
Yeah.
get you the help right away. But if you pass out and you go out in the water, there's nobody there to help you.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we are out of time for the show. It has been great having you both on, and I know we'll see you again. I'm sure we'll see you again as well. Thanks for coming down from
Absolutely.
the Tustin area. Fascinating information. It really is, and great to see you both.